I'm never quite sure what to think with this genre. I went into World of Tanks expecting an action-style shooter, but found a slower-paced strategic game that grabbed onto me for a good while before the community began showing elitist roots. I went into War Thunder's Ground Forces mode thinking it was a clunkier version of World of Tanks, but found a game with plenty of clever and interesting mechanics before I noticed the publisher behind it growing steadily more corrupt and refusing to fix the issues that players were exploiting for the sake of selling high-priced, overpowered tanks. And now we start this song and dance anew. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at Armored Warfare. A joint venture by My.com and Obsidian Entertainment, the same venture that brought us the MMORPG Skyforge, Armored Warfare is yet another military-themed arena shooter in the vein of the aforementioned World of Tanks and War Thunder. Unlike its predecessors, Armored Warfare employs a modern setting and focuses purely on the ground vehicles, including armored wheeled vehicles instead of strictly tanks. It's obviously very derivative of World of Tanks, taking common features like the upgrade system, using experience and credits, and having visible HP bars over the tanks, but if you look past this, you're bound to find a few surprises and differences that may have you choose this game over one of the others. As stated, Armored Warfare is incredibly iterative of World of Tanks by design. Anyone that has played World of Tanks will be able to hit the ground running here. But there are a few major differences between the two titles, so don't go in expecting to know everything this game is going to offer. The majority of changes will be covered in gameplay, but things like the HUD, the spotting system, and the aiming system will be instantly recognizable, even if some details will be new. There's some fantastic attention to detail here, from duty packs and various bits of gear hanging from the tanks, to detonated ERA packs leaving scorch marks, to high explosive shells leaving burns, and armor piercings leaving holes on impact. A lot of the fine details help eliminate the plastic look, which we mentioned in the side quest for this title, which came from composite materials not having a metallic look and each vehicle being factory floor fresh. With the newest system, things look more grounded. More details and weathering on the vehicles make them seem like they've been combatants in various conflicts for a while. The level of detail extends to the maps themselves. Various cars and construction vehicles, barriers and the like will make each map feel like a place that people have actually lived in and add destructibility to the environment. You'll find small vignettes for each map, either showcasing an objective or giving some idea of just how large the conflicts between various private military corporations can be, with aerial dogfights between jet fighters, helicopters evacuating civilians, or entire cargo planes being blown out of the sky before crash landing onto several buildings and city streets. There really isn't much music to talk about here, especially when compared to others within the genre. There are 15 tracks, but these mostly consist of short ditties to convey a victory or a loss, with only a few longer tunes. Armored Warfare instead relies more on the voice work and sound effects to carry the tension, with perhaps a little background ambience to set the mood. What music is here can be generally classified as synthesized electronica with bits of rock thrown in. The sound effects seem to have gone through a serious upgrade from their time in alpha testing, with penetration sounding a lot more appropriate than forks being thrown onto the floor, impacts giving better feedback, and engines sounding a lot beefier. There's even small touches added in when the engine gets damaged or health gets low to add an extra bit of tension. The voice work helps make your crew feel more integral to the tank, rather than just being stats and buffs with faces. The commander gives orders to the crew can respond or give short acknowledgements of job completion. There's small bits of added detail here as well. Commanders can sound increasingly desperate to get the main gun loaded when seeing multiple enemies, or on very low health, and every now and then a crew member will cry out that they need to get out of there. The sounds actually have some gameplay effects as well, which we'll discuss more in detail soon, but on their own, something as seemingly minor as giving each crew member a voice can add a lot of weight to combat and certainly helps with immersion. Time to dispel a few misconceptions about this title. First and foremost amongst these is that the vehicles in Armored Warfare are not sticking to the World War era of tanks. These are what would be classified as modern vehicles. The oldest you can get are some vehicles made their debut during the Korean War, but these tend to be Tier 1 and 2, with the vast majority first seeing service post-Vietnam. You'll find a lot more combat vehicles here as well. Using the name Armored Warfare means that they aren't limited to tanks, and they can use any IFV, AFV, tank destroyer, or artillery piece that they desire. Even better, these were all actual vehicles, unlike Wargaming's offerings, which have a lot of paper tanks and complete fantasy designs padding the roster. The roster is a key difference as well, as Armored Warfare takes place in the modern day, but with an alternate timeline twist. As military budgets started getting curtailed, PMCs began taking up contracts for small work, like convoy duty, border patrol, and the like, until it eventually snowballed into private military corporations fighting conflicts themselves. Many of the PMC groups are loyal to one country or another, and some even have backing from religious extremists. What this means for gameplay is that there are no nation rosters, so new vehicles can easily just be added. Since there's no need to add an entire nation's tech tree, new vehicles can simply be made available via one of the game's two main dealers. This leads into the way Armored Warfare handles progression and unlocks. Rather than existing separately, they're instead a combined entity. As you play your vehicle, you'll earn reputation, which you may spend on upgrades and unlocks for your vehicle, but which also represents how much experience you have towards the next vehicle in that tree. Once you get to 50%, you unlock Proven status, and gain the ability to spend reputation in the Proven section of vehicle upgrades, which often have cash influxes to make getting to the next tier a little easier. This system honestly worked quite well, and always grants the feeling of making progress, even when using a vehicle you currently don't like, and that reputation to unlock the next vehicle doesn't cost anything, it's just a bar you fill. This means you can easily focus on both dealers if you find you like vehicles from both, or you just want to try a bit of everything. Said dealers are Sophie Wolfley, who has a few Russian BMPs to sell, but mostly focuses on American and Western European vehicles, and Marat Shishkin, who has a couple of Western vehicles but mostly stocks up on Eastern Bloc equipment. There'll be a third dealer added later, but it hasn't been revealed what type of equipment they'll be focusing on and what sort of achievements you'll need to unlock their tech trees. In another change from World of Tanks, rather than simply going down a tree, you'll need to unlock it first by completing a challenge specific to that tree. There's a small change to Tier 9 as well. Every Tier 9 vehicle doesn't actually get included into the tree that leads up to it. Rather, once you get to Tier 8 and max out that vehicle's reputation, you'll be given a Tier 9 token that allows you to unlock any Tier 9 vehicle you want, regardless of what it is or what dealer it's from. If you want to get those beautiful British main battle tanks, you'll need to deflect or mitigate damage while playing in a vehicle purchased from Shishkin. If you want to unlock Wolfley's recon vehicles, then you need to spot a set number of enemy vehicles while driving one of hers. If you want to unlock the artillery, then you need to play a set number of matches in a dealer's vehicles, with two separate artillery trees representing Shishkin or Wolfley respectively. This is another major change, as artillery is incredibly different from its World of Tanks counterparts. There are the small changes like the viewing angle being lower instead of top-down, which helps the artillery still feel like part of the team, and larger changes like making artillery active support rather than a direct damage dealer. Artillery in Armored Warfare cannot one-shot anything without incredible luck, and the enemy would have to have some Lemony Snicket-style series of unfortunate events take place. The purpose of artillery is to help flush out, hull down, or entrench enemies, and to lay down smoke screens or even spot using IR flares. The biggest single change to artillery is that everyone that isn't playing artillery will get an audio-visual warning when an artillery barrage is incoming, allowing them to try to maneuver out of the path of impact. The second biggest change is that whenever you fire your main gun as artillery, you'll audibly and visibly ping the minimap for anyone playing enemy artillery, but you'll also fully render your vehicle for a short time, allowing a quick enemy artillery piece to counter-battery you. If you continue to fire from the same position, the minimap pings will get smaller and smaller until it finally reveals your true position, render you completely, and give the enemy artillery full details about your vehicle like any other vehicle has been spotted normally. All of this encourages artilleries to stay mobile, if only to avoid getting shot by their counterparts on the enemy team. Concealment, or the cover system for every tank, takes a far different approach as well. In War Thunder, this was nearly non-existent, going for a more natural effect by using the graphics engine, which is why putting everything on low settings was considered such an exploit. No brush, no foliage to hide behind. In World of Tanks it was more mechanical, but only required your tank commander to have a perk called Situational Awareness, which gave you an indication that you were spotted. In Armored Warfare, every tank gets this perk by default. When spotted, you'll see a yellow eye icon on your screen, which will slowly fade when you gain back concealment. You can check your concealment on the UI by looking over the small bars on your tank in the lower left corner. The gray to white bars that surround your tank show your level of cover and defense in each direction, while the bar underneath shows your level of concealment that makes you harder to detect. If there's red in the bar, you can be detected by visual range alone, while the bar being filled in white has you so well hidden you can't be spotted without proximity detection. One smaller difference is that firing your main gun doesn't immediately negate all concealment regardless of weapon. A smaller caliber autocannon, for example, will cause the concealment rating to steadily drop as it continues to fire. Concealment will recover after a few seconds once the trigger is released. The larger the caliber, the more severe the concealment penalty when they fire. With the latest patch, this has been changed a little. The Tank Destroyer class vehicles have had their old sniper bonus removed, and instead get an active ability called Gun Suppression, which removes the concealment penalty for firing while it's active, allowing tank destroyers to get closer and more rapid shots into targets for a short time without being revealed. Ammunition types follow a rough outline. Heat, high explosive anti-tank, which does the most damage of any type in the game but can be defeated by modern armors. Hesh, or high explosive squash head, which was designed to give more kinetic damage on impact to destroy modules with concussive force. AP, or armor piercing, which can be divided into kinetic that uses sheer force to penetrate a hull, and fin stabilized discarding sabot, which acts like a dart to pierce a smaller area of armor. ATGM, or anti-tank guided missiles, have long reload times and can be guided using the mouse and do a lot of damage, but they can be easily defeated by modern armor and defense systems. Ammunition loadout is vital in this game. Sure, at the low tiers, feel free to load up on all the heat rounds you can muster, as they have good penetration, do the best damage, and have chances of knocking out vital components. But this changes rapidly as you advance in tiers, and by proxy, advance towards present-day vehicles that have specialized composite armors to stop heat, Hesh, ATGM, and even AP. You want to ensure you're prepared for whatever vehicle comes your way, then make sure you know what type of shell you should be slapping it with. To the game's credit and detriment, you can get absolutely overwhelmed by all the information it gives you, ranging from loading times, travel speeds, armor values, armor ratings versus ammunition, armor angles, engine power, depression and elevation values, and much, much more. The game is designed to allow those that want to take in every detail of a vehicle to do just that, and to get an edge in combat as well. More changes can be seen within the game's minimap system, which does act a lot like the minimap in World of Tanks, but includes additional valuable information. Here, if an enemy vehicle has been spotted but then managed to break line of sight, they'll still have their last known position marked out on the map. This gives players more information about what was going on outside their area, and can make hunting down the last few enemy combatants far easier. Another simple change is that kills aren't as lucrative in Armored Warfare as they would be in most every other competitive title. You can have the vast majority of kills and still come in at 5th on the leaderboard because damage, assists, and spotting play a much larger role in your score and earn you more rewards. This means that playing a scout actually feels pretty good, and finding positions to keep the enemy vehicles lit up while your team pummels them into the dirt is rewarded very well here. As it stands, the standard PvP doesn't offer that much variety. There are only two objective types. One is a single point capture located at the center of the map, and the other is a base capture, with both being completed by capturing the middle point or enemy base respectively, or by destroying all the enemy's vehicles. However, there's one massive advantage that this game has over its competitors: a true PvE mode. Yes, you heard that right, but we aren't talking about mirror matches with bots. Actual player versus environment missions with bits of story, varied objectives, and bonus objectives, and sometimes using PvE exclusive maps. The AI isn't the best and tends to be a little more than a swarm at times, but the latest update did help by making AI spawns a bit more random to keep things fresh every time. The PvE also helps reveal the story of this world. The story is actually pretty decent, which is especially impressive when compared to other rivals within the same genre, though not nearly as impressive as Obsidian's pedigree would imply. It's been stated that PvE will be receiving more overhauls, with one of the largest being the addition of a loot system for completing missions. Currently you can earn the same if not a little more experience by playing the PvE, but PvP will easily earn you the most credits, so both modes are lucrative for different reasons. With the upcoming loot system, there may even be more of a reason to stick to PvE, and one of the loot drops may well be resources for the PMC base system. A PMC base acts as your personal PMC's compound. It gives you benefits for having various buildings, benefits that increase with each of the building's levels. The base has its own attention to detail, including visual changes per level, with some being minor visual upgrades and others giving complete overhauls. Currently with the Christmas updates, you can see a snow machine, with plenty of supplies to spew out more fake snow on your garage and make things a bit more festive. One thing we do want to highlight is the fact that one of the buildings gives discounts on premium time, and this is permanent, which is honestly a welcome sight. The community of Armored Warfare will be familiar to anyone that's played a competitive title before. Armchair generals that only speak up once they're dead, FYGM players that push out in front of others to gain glory, and several dozen shells to the face. Pleasant players that complement each other, those that will tell jokes or spread their dank memes, and even players willing to help. It's a decent balance. But remember that this is a competitive title, so don't expect saints all the time. But don't expect the dregs of the internet either. Fortunately, there is a robust, if clunky, system for teaming up with others or setting up groups and guilds. You can add players to your friends list, requiring them to accept rather than being on a stalker list. And you can also offer players the ability to join your group. This isn't a group in the normal sense, it's actually a chat channel. The actual parties are known as platoons. They have a limit of 3 players in PvP, but you can take 5 players if you want to do PvE and have the entire room to yourselves. You can also choose to form a battalion, which acts as this game's guild system. Currently, this system is fairly average. The battalion will allow you to set a tag, a motto, and a special decal to show off for your group. It remains to be seen if there'll be more added to battalions in the future, much like plans to add more to the PMC bases, but for now it acts like a special friends list and chat room for setting up platoons. When we first showed Armored Warfare on the channel during our side quest of the game, one of the comments that made its way up to the top warned that the publisher was notorious for its greed, and would likely make this game a pay-to-win fest, so player beware. We can safely say that, as of the date of this review, that hasn't happened at all, and what we do have is exceptionally generous giving its competitors within the genre. You won't find any gold ammunition here, and the developers have stated that this will never be present within their title. While time will tell if this remains true throughout the game's lifespan, it's nice to see a firm statement about it up front. Hell, the simple idea that there is no limit on the number of vehicles you can own seems like unheard of generosity compared to Wargaming and Gaijin. Armored Warfare even offers permanent discounts for premium status, allowing players to have extra gold to exchange for experience, credits, or premium vehicles. Said premium vehicles are incredibly cheap in comparison as well, sometimes being 3 times cheaper than their tier equivalent in other titles. They aren't put into inflated bundles either, so you can get all of the premium vehicles at a rather reasonable price point. These vehicles are well balanced as well. They have their strengths and they give good experience and credits compared to their standard counterparts at first. More on this in a second, but they won't be the best vehicles you can find and are very niche within their battlefield functions. If you have a particular vehicle you enjoy, or you want to increase the speed of experience and credit gains, you can give your tank the Battle Hardened status. Once your vehicle has hit Proven status, the halfway point in reputation, you can spend gold to convert it into a Premium Light vehicle, giving you the extra boosts to credits and experience for a little under half the cost of an equivalent premium. There's several decals and soon camouflage patterns that you can purchase to give your tank a little more personalization. Decals give no benefits, and the camouflage isn't implemented yet, and there's no word on whether or not it'll have buffs or just be cosmetic. Tresca and I, and, well, plenty of others, had a lot of concern for this title initially, but he's pretty solidly sold on the title, and I enjoy it enough to keep it installed, which is more than I can say for the others right now. It's the little touches here and there that make this game feel more unique, or at least feeling like it had the interest of the player at heart. Will time give way to greed and force this game to fall to the same issues that other titles of its nature have? Let's hope not, and keep our fingers crossed that Obsidian can rein in some of its partners' more infamous business practices. Here's my final rating. Per the usual, the game is really easy to pick up on, provided you're not trying to play it like a Twitch shooter and roar out into the open field, guns blazing. If you're coming from a similar title or are new to the genre, you should be able to figure out what does what with relative ease. A competitive tactical shooter of this nature having a PvE mode, and not just a PvE mode that's the exact same as the PvP, but with bots, could easily be the factor that puts this one over the top for you. PvE matches are varied and provide challenge at higher levels without the potential frustration of being torn asunder by extremely skilled or lucky enemy players. As much as people want to say this is a one-for-one copy of World of Tanks, there's plenty of touches here that make this game feel like a world of difference from its inspiration. Simple things like the artillery changes to generous things like providing you with unlimited slots and crews for your tanks, and being able to use tanks that actually existed in a usable form instead of some made-up fantasy drawings come to life, set this game apart far beyond just being the tank game with the PvE mode. If there's one thing that's hardly changed from similar titles, it's this category. Paying for premium account time is a simple and classic way to build up your experience and credit gain faster, though we'll admit it's made nicer by the option to upgrade a base building for a permanent discount. Of course, there's also the standard practice of premium tanks that offer up ways into higher tiers without having to earn them, but they, like most other titles of this nature, don't guarantee you're going to win the match, and only serve to help boost your experience and credit gain for working through the trees properly. It's also nice that they tend to be far cheaper than the competition's tanks. If you're already a huge fan of World of Tanks or War Thunder, I'm not even sure why you're watching this. Perhaps to leave some snarky or angry comment about this game versus yours? Regardless of reason, players who've spent hours upon hours learning the ins and outs of another title might not wish to be willing to learn this one. Things are different enough to be counterintuitive to a meta featured in another game, and such tactics could result in a dedicated player assuming this game is just broken or weird because of it. If you're really into one of those other games, I'm pretty sure you have no reason to leave it for this one. There's a lot of concern over this publisher. People have seen what was done to Aladd's. They didn't like the feel of Skyforge, and seeing yet another title under the same banner can be cause for concern. While I can't say I feel this game is heading down any questionable path, as they've been very generous to their players, I felt the same way about Gaijin once too. If you don't like any other military-themed tank shooter, this is likely not different enough to bring you on board. You still need to grind for upgrades. You still need to know which tank is weak to what and where to shoot it. It may not be fast enough for Twitch shooter fans or strategic enough for the sim players. That weird middle ground the genre sits in seems to be rather polarizing. Just don't expect Armored Warfare to feel much different if you wrote off those other games after your first couple matches. Next time, we'll be looking at a game whose developer was considered the benchmarking pinnacle. Let's just hope that it won't take the same requirements to run their free-to-play online game. Sticking around this long if you're hoping for something at the end of this. Don't waste your time. But if you still want to hear me out, the window on the left will take you to my last episode on ELOA, or Elite Lord of Alliance, or cheap-ass Diablo. Yeah, I get it, a hack and slash is still Diablo, but you know what? I defined my reasons. Anyway, the window on the right's going to be a little bit of a double squeeze going on there. On the left side of that, it will take you to the War Thunder backtrack I did. It focuses mostly on the tanks. While the right side of that window will focus on the World of Tanks backtrack, both of you getting a little more context to what the hell I was talking about in this episode. I don't got any plugs to do this week, so if you wish to join the group of people who want to point you to a website that you like, you can head on over to my Patreon and check out all the perks there, even though most people aren't using them. I don't get it either. I have 2 Twitter accounts if you want to follow either or none. @ChaosD1 is my personal account. If you can give less of a rat's ass on how badly I'm doing while I play Armello, you can probably just go ahead and follow the @MMO_Grinder account. This will be completely and only show updates versus whatever the hell I'm ranting about this week. If you feel like joining Grindstone, checking out our forums, or even joining our Discord channel, head on over to mmogrinder.boards.net and all the info you need is right there.